Oh, now this one is the treat. This is the one from 60, 70 years ago, Rick. This is one that I've been very excited about sharing with you. I believe it's right up your Strasser, in fact.
Really?
Yes. In fact, this is tonight. This fills the oldie theory, and it is the theory of, and you'll like this one. I think this ticks your boxes. The gas attendant.
Oh, my word. Yes. So this is, as you say, this is an old one. You know, we've probably, I mean, we've discussed this one before, haven't we? And it was one of those where, as is not uncommon, we found ourselves hoping for more information, but it's an old story and hasn't been heard of much recently. I mean, have you heard anything really recently, or are we still dealing with stuff from decades ago?
I would say that everything surrounding the gas attendant very much fell out of favour in the early 70s. I think,
Mm.
unlike the tall baby that's enjoyed a bit of a renaissance recently, everything is from back then. Those sort of 15 years from the late 50s to the early 70s were definitely uh, the centre point of the gas attendant tale. I think the main reason it carries weight now is it has a large, for want of a better word, cult following, Rick. You don't have to delve far into the internet to really find a lot of interested people.
And I think, is it 3 or 4 years ago now? Somebody made a low budget independent movie, didn't they? Based on the story, based on the concept.
Very much so, and it did surprisingly well. It was only released in a few, I think Britain only got it in a few cinemas, but it made very good money on its budget because it showed there were people that went and watched it 3 or 4 times, myself included. I must admit, Rick. I don't know about you.
I caught it at a festival, I think, and then I ended up being given a copy on DVD a bit later. Uh, I I think the nature of these kinds of films is they tend to over sensationalize the story just a little bit. Um, but it's a truly dark story, and and though, I mean, we probably first heard about it um, in the UK, didn't we, as being a UK based legend. Uh, The way the story's gone is that people have equivalents all over the place.
Exactly. For those watching and listening who aren't too aware of it, Rick and I will do our best now to fill you in with the details. We're both quite learned on it. It's a fantastic tale. Um, Basically, the legend started that people would often people driving alone would pull into a petrol station, often in the middle of nowhere. And I think that's why it's a story that has resonated around the world, Rick. There's a lot of countries with gas or petrol stations in the middle of nowhere, which can be quite daunting for those driving alone at night, especially.
The for those who don't know the areas we're talking about, in northern England, on the Hog's Back, on moorlands and what have you, you sometimes get uh, petrol service stations that are just stuck pretty much on their own in the middle of nowhere, and they become little beacons of light that when you're driving at night you encounter. It is an interesting story. It's an interesting concept. I think, though obviously the focus is on the attendant, the figure that's absolutely central to every part of the tale. We've encountered, have we not, a few stories where it's not just the attendant, but the actual station itself, including the attendant, that is just there for the purposes of this one encounter and can't be located again.
Very much so. So often the story will generally go that someone driving alone, again in the 50s, 60s, 70s, this is before big motorways and such like. I think America had some freeways at the time and some of the old routes, but in Britain, especially up north, people would be driving alone in their car, and they would pull into the petrol station, and there would be usually there'd say a man in his 50s, 60s, 70s, dressed slightly differently to how you'd expect. Very much like the photo, in fact. This was an artist's rendition. People posed for it. This was a shot from the film, in fact, I believe. It made it in.
I believe so, yes.
And he would come up and he would offer to clean their windows. And it's not such a common thing in the UK, which made it strange. And he would fill their tanks with petrol and talk cheerily to them. And then he would ask them, it would always be the case, he would tell them that that he was fearful of his situation and asked if they could drive him across just a few miles home, that he'd sort of missed the last bus or such like, and it was the end of his shift, and that he was worried that he would not get back to his wife and his dog. And of course, some would refuse, but those that agreed, that opened up the whole next part of the tale, Rick.
Well, absolutely. So it's important to understand that, as far as we're aware, nobody who saw this attendant and interacted with them, and they didn't, for the most part, nobody felt that this character was in any way suspicious or creepy or anything. He came across as a really friendly character, but equally nobody had seen him before, even if they drove the road regularly, even if they often stopped for fuel. Nobody had seen him before. This, as far as we can tell, everybody who's seen him has only ever seen him the one time. They would follow his directions, of course. If they gave him a lift, he would tell them where to turn. And the story, of course, isn't entirely about the gas attendant. In some cases, the fuel station was a known one to them. In other cases, the fuel station only seemed to appear for this one encounter. The gas attendant would direct them away from it. And there are people who say, suddenly as you were driving away, you would lose sight of it suddenly, as if it sort of blinked out of existence in your rearview mirror. But you just sort of think, oh, that's because we went over a bit of a dip in the road or something like that. You don't automatically think that that's suspicious. And he would direct them away from the main road and off down a winding little dirt track for a few miles. And this, I suppose, is where people started to get more concerned, because eventually he would direct them to a place and he would say, thank you, thank you very much, we're here. And he would get out and walk off. But the place he would leave the car, there was no home there, no habitation there, no sign of life. And it was at this point, usually, as they watched him disappear into the dark, that the car engine would die and they would suddenly find that they couldn't start it. And they're suddenly stranded in pitch dark environments in the middle of the night, miles from anywhere. And, well, obviously, just at the beginning of a story like this, that's very scary for somebody when you're traveling alone.
Very much so, and of course, quite often the reports are that it being quite a jovial trip up until that point. The gas attendant was quite cheerful, would often sing a song, and it was always reported to be the same song. I don't know if you've heard it. It went a little bit like, okay, right, it's been a while since I've heard it. It was a very good, in the film, it was a very good rendition. It went a little something like, lonely roads and friendly faces make roads less lonely. Something like that, wasn't it? It was cheerful. It seemed like the man was happy for the company, happy for the help.
Yes. There are little pieces of the story, because after this, of course, people react quite differently. Some people started to panic. Some people got out and ran. Some people steeled themselves and waited to see if the car would cool down and work. It turns out that the radio wouldn't work. The lights became unreliable. Eventually, pretty much everybody abandoned their car and set off walking back to the main road if they could. And here, I suppose, is why this is known as the gas attendant rather than anything else. Because remarkably, this story has this one coherent piece that seems to be very much the same. And then what happens to each person after they're abandoned by the gas attendant is quite different, remarkably different. People speak about being hunted by monsters in the night. People speak about seeing alien visitations overhead or weird light patterns in the sky. People say that they were walking through what felt like an electrified field, which made all their hair stand up on end. You hear every person tells a different story for the last part of the tale. It's only the gas attendant story until the gas attendant leaves, and then it becomes different for everybody. And this, I think, would be the kind of thing that would make me prone to believe. I don't know if any of the versions you've heard have rung true for you.
I think for me, I agree fully in that you have that single point, and then everyone's experience is different, which makes it definitely sit. And I think that's why it's lasted for so many years in people's consciousness in our community. I think for me, it's that what makes it gives it that extra bit of crunch is that we only hear the tales from those that, when asked, "What did you do next?" they all answered that they didn't follow the gas attendant.
That's right.
And the ones that were never, there were, of course, some that were never heard of again, that we didn't hear the tales from. And one could only assume that they followed after this figure.
I think this is probably, of all of the tales we've looked into and really researched in detail, this is one of the things that I would say, whether you believe in the gas attendant or do not believe in the gas attendant, if for whatever reason you find yourself in this kind of situation, and maybe it isn't always a gas attendant, it is in every case we've encountered, but it could be something else. Maybe it hunts differently at other times. But if you find yourself in this situation, dropping somebody off in the middle of the night because they asked for a lift, literally in the middle of nowhere, and as they leave, suddenly your car doesn't work and your lights don't work and your radio doesn't work, I do feel confident saying to people, don't follow that figure.
Very, very good, Rick. That's excellent advice. In fact, did you? I don't know if you saw. I sent you an email a while back with a newspaper clipping that the brother of someone that had gone missing also ran into a similar situation, but the gas attendant appeared to be his brother.
Hmm.
That so a terrifying thought that perhaps those that don't follow your advice are damned to an eternity of such a cycle.
It's everybody's description of the gas attendant sounds familiar and similar, but if you ask people to, sit with a sketch artist, the face comes out a little bit different. And we do hear stories of similar tales from around the world, and it's not always a gas attendant. It's not always this exact version, but I have to tell you, there is some freaky stuff out there.
Massively. So, our chat has been busy, Rick, as always. Sock Fiddler was talking about a taco incident. I feel that doesn't quite match with the tale. But Croy, a Scottish gentleman, it sounds like he would be target number one for the gas attendant, living in Scotland, driving a Fiat Punto, alone at night, maybe. Very similar to visiting the local co-op. There has been theories, of course, that as gas attendants petrol stations have died out, that we may see a return, but in a different role, maybe as the lone worker in a otherwise automated co-op or small shop. Do you hold any weight to that, or do you think that's just hearsay, hopes that this story could be reignited?
I must confess, this is one of those things where I'm tempted to say there's a lot of mileage, if you'll forgive the pun, in the slight variations in the story. The experiences that people have could vary quite a bit and still convey the core central tale.
To me, Rick, it feels like you're warm to this story, and so I think to finish the segment, I would love to hear your final thoughts on it. The gas attendant, do you believe, or are you skeptical?
Well, I'm afraid on the gas attendant, I have to say I'm skeptical.
And yet you gave so
much. And I'll tell you why.
Please do. You've let me down tonight, Rick. I feel like all we've been through together in this tale.
It's just too good a story. It's so rich in detail, and it's so frightening. It's so scary. Most of the real the really compelling ones are subtle, and you only get to see the edges of them. But this one feels like it comes with its own explanation, its own narrative. It feels too good. So to me, it has the tinge of a ghost story told around a campfire rather than the real thing.
As I must admit, Rick, this is where you and I, as we often do, go in separate directions. It's what I love about you, that we can have such discourse together and be brothers in arms. But for this one, truly, I believe. Russ and Croy and Chat agree with me. It's a beautiful tale, and yes, maybe Hollywood has taken hold of it, that it's become more than maybe it actually was. But for me, it's that different countries have a similar tale. Yeah, it's like, you know, the night terrors, the beast, you know, the beast on your chest, you know, whether it's the witch in the corner or the black the black face, you know that being sat on your chest, unable to make you breathe, and yet every country has its own tale. For me, this is similar, and of everything we're covering tonight, in fact, for me, this is the one. I I believe in the gas attendant, and I never stop for petrol when I'm alone. Believe it or not, late at night. Haven't done for my entire life.
Uh, and I respect that. I just can't bring myself to agree, I'm afraid.
Well, that's what the Truth Foragers are all about. We put out the evidence, and more importantly, the hearsay and the whispers, and we make those decisions and leave you, dear viewers, to make them too.